Hi, I'm Mark Morrisey from Morrisey Management. Lucky enough to be invited on Paula McGrath's Pure Grit podcast.
Welcome to Pure Grit with Paula McGrath. If you search the word grit, you'd see that it means to have courage, show strength of character, passion and perseverance. Throughout the series, Paula will chat to guests from all walks of life who have shown pure grit to get to where they are now. Paula, yeah, look, your hair looks fine. I've done the intro, so ready for you to talk now. Yeah, you do your talking thing.
Today on my Pure Grit podcast with Paula McGrath. Now, how do I introduce this amazing man? He's the founder and CEO of one of Australia's most successful talent agencies. He has nurtured some of the biggest names in Hollywood to fame, including Thor himself, Chris Hemsworth, and his brother Liam Hemsworth, Hunger Games, of course, Courtney. Is it Courtney? No? Jai. I thought I was right. Jai Courtney, Katie Ritchie, of course, Michael Caton, Georgie Parker, Yurin Hay, is it?
Yurin Ha.
Yurin Ha, who I hear has just scored a role in a Spielberg series. Thank you very much.
She's one of the leads in it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And he is an executive producer in Australian film and television, and one of what we all loved, Molly, which won a Logie for Best Drama. He has also been voted on boards of the Actors, AFI. You know, you've really made it when you hit this man's agency and they take you on. Mr. Mark Morrisey, welcome to Pure Grit.
That
How's that?
That CV just goes on and on, isn't it? Oh my God, there's too much in there. I've got to edit some stuff out of there.
I took a bit of creative license. Yurin Ha, yeah.
Yurin Ha, there's a great story. She was a 21-year-old graduate from NIDA. I was lucky enough to see her in her second year show at NIDA and picked her as something special there. She graduated and she joined the agency. She did, I think, 3 auditions, three recalls for this top secret project. And then about a month later, her and I were flying to Budapest, where she was one of the leads in Steven Spielberg's next series, television series.
Wow. And how old is she now?
She's 22 years old.
22. She's absolutely beautiful.
And she's beautiful inside and out.
Is she? And then she just is lucky enough that you picked her out of that night.
Well, both. I was lucky enough to be there in the audience and see that extraordinary performance of hers on that night.
Well, here we are chatting. It's been many years since I've actually seen you in person, and here you are. You haven't changed a bit, Mr. Morrisey.
Well, neither of you.
Feel very dapper. Look at you.
Thank you very much.
I was very lucky enough to have Mark Morrisey represent me many moons ago. Probably like, what, 20?
No, we won't say how long ago.
It was a long time.
Everyone's going to assume that I represented you when you were 10 years old. So, no.
No, I think I was 25 or 26. 25, I think.
Right.
So I wasn't, I it was a long time ago. But look, you are amazing. I remember back in the day, you had Chris Hemsworth. He was a beautiful looking young guy in Home and Away.
Yeah.
And
Chris.
I actually remember sitting at a movie premiere and he was sitting behind me with his girlfriend, Isabel Lucas.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. And then you just took him. And what did you recognize in Chris, for example, at that? Was it his good looks?
In him, and it was a lot of things, because at that stage I'd been going backwards and forwards to Los Angeles for many years, trying to ascertain exactly what it was that potentially could work over there. So I was lucky enough to meet some of the best agents and some of the best management companies in LA at an early stage. And I just started making mental notes about what it appeared to be that they were looking for, what attributes that they found to be movie stars. and bringing it back. And, you know, I've got to thank all of the people that I took before Chris, all of the people that I've taken since Chris, because they've helped this industry and certainly helped me and my business to learn and to be able to understand what it is, how we need to be prepared the best. So Chris is certainly an extraordinary story, and very lucky to have been a small part of it.
And I look forward to getting him on my podcast soon. Maybe his brother Liam even.
Yep, Liam's back. Liam's back, which is wonderful. I love
that could be a yes. Oh, there was a little bit of, you know.
Love having all of them
it's
back.
Not about what you know, it's about who you know, Mark, you know.
I tell you who the movie star of that family is their parents. Their parents.
Their parents.
Leone and Craig are movie stars in their own right.
Are they really?
Gorgeous, gorgeous, wonderful people. Yeah.
And obviously that's where they get their good looks from.
Yeah. They're both very good-looking people, but really committed, interesting people too. You know, they've given up a lot of their life to educating, you know, certain portions of Australia that normally wouldn't have access to teachers and educators. So they're in the middle of Australia teaching a small community of, I think it was like 50 to 100 people. And that's where the boys spent some of their years growing up in the middle of the desert. So their parents are extraordinary, wonderful people.
That's amazing. Now, take me back to your past. Like where did you go to school and where did you grow up?
Well, I went to a whole number of schools. For whatever reason, my parents tended to travel around in Melbourne. So I think I attended either 9 or 10 different schools by the time that I was 15 and a half. And at that stage, I decided that I didn't want to stay at school any longer. And I left just after, in June, July of that year when I was going to turn 16.
In all throughout Melbourne?
All throughout Melbourne, all these different places like Elstonwick and Caulfield and where else did we stay? Templestowe. I think I was born around Templestowe, and we ended up spending most of our time around Blackburn and Mitcham.
So how did you know what you wanted to be when you were young? No.
Oh God, no. No idea.
So what
I still don't know.
What did you, when you were finishing school, what did you think you were going to be when you grow up?
I think a part of me wanted to be a pilot at one stage, but then I realised that I didn't have the education. And that's when it first started hitting me that my early departure from school was going to be a hindrance. Yeah. I did everything that I could. I studied to be a golf professional.
Really? Did you really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I was pretty good. I still hit a ball around a bit. So I studied that for 2.5 years, but I wanted to be good enough to go on the circuit. So, and at that stage, I didn't have the temperament. I was a very hot-headed young man, and you can't have a temper when you're playing golf. So then I just did everything that was thrown at me. I worked in clothing shops and factories, and did a lot of bar work because I could come and go, you know, from shifts. Really anything. Anyone that gave me a suggestion of a job, I put my hand to it and see if I liked it or not.
So where did the drive or the passion arise in you to be in creative arts?
This is probably one of the luckiest parts of my story, is that a friend of mine who was a bartender with me wanted to audition for the National Theatre down in Melbourne. And he wanted a little bit of support. And so I went along as support, and I just sat in the foyer of the National Theatre, and he went in and he did his audition, and he came out very, very quickly, and he walked straight out the building. And followed him was this extraordinary woman by the name of Joan Harris. And she ran the National Theatre, and she had this carriage about her and this power about her. And she looked me up and down, me sitting in this chair. And
thought, oh, he's all right.
No. She
Oh.
looked me up and down and she said, so what's your story?
Oh.
And I was a chronic blusher, and I still am, actually. I get embarrassed very, very easily. And
Good. You might get this on camera.
No, you won't. Stop it. And then she invited me into her office just to have a chat. And God knows what this amazing woman saw in this bartender in Melbourne. But she gave me, she actually paid for me to do my first year at drama school. And I was still a young man that had never seen theatre at this stage, Paula. I'd never ever seen live theatre. And it wasn't until I was in my second year at the National Theatre that I finally saw a play, and I saw Metamorphosis, the Melbourne Theatre Company. And that blew my mind. Anyway, I completed, 100 people started that course and only 4 people completed it. And I was one of those 4. And she just continued to mentor me in my life after that. I still didn't have any money. So she gave me a job learning or being an assistant to the teachers for the young kids on a Saturday morning. And there I learned patience, and I learned exercises for actors, and I learned how to encourage young people. And I really enjoyed it too. And I went on to do a whole variety of other things like television and theatre. But that woman, Joan Harris, single-handedly changed my entire life.
Wow. So yours is sort of a bit of a lucky story in the beginning.
I stumble upwards all the time. You were reading my CV there, and
it's amazing.
I'm the one that's shaking my head, to be honest, because I think I've been extraordinarily blessed throughout my career. And that, how we all don't think we deserve what we've got. I'm one of those that go, all right, well, I'm happy, I'm here, I'm thrilled that I've been able to achieve what I have, but my God, I'm lucky.
You have met, and you now met everyone you can possibly imagine. You've walked the red carpet up with everyone that we know and love on Australian television and films as well. And I was in awe. I remember I was in awe when I first met you, and I was very, very lucky with everybody at your agency when I was young, because unlike you, from when I was very young, I knew what I wanted to do. But it was just like a little girl from Adelaide. How do I get there? I was like really young. I want to be on TV. It's like, how do you have no idea when you're young how you're going to get there. But I got there, and it was a little tick, did it? But with your agency, you're amazing, because I got to do things that I didn't think I'd get to do. I was in lots of television commercials, which was a lot of comedy, a lot of fun, thanks to your agency, because you were in with everyone.
The agency is one part of it. I mean, you did everyone else. You're the one that did the auditions, and you're the one that was able to achieve.
Lots of auditions that you get, like 100 and you get one. Like, everyone has got to realise that if they are wanting to get into this industry, isn't it? You go to audition after audition after audition, or casting after casting. Thank you, bye-bye. Thank you, bye-bye.
Well, see, I admire you, and I admire people like you that at a very early age go, I know exactly what it is I want to do. I think that's extraordinary.
But now you've dealt with, oh, hang on one sec. My dog's decided to talk to you, Mark. Hang on one sec.
Excellent.
Harvey out.
No, my books are closed when it comes to dogs.
He started to talk to you. What do you want to out? Harvey out.
Yeah.
Harvey out.
I'm a whisperer.
Harvey out. No, you've got to go out. He's a little bit crazy. He's losing. Thanks.
What's his name?
Harvey.
What's his name?
Harvey.
I thought you were saying hubby, and all I could hear you saying is hubby
out. Harvey out. Harvey out. He's about to be 13, and he's coming to the end of his. It's quite sad. He's got a bit of dementia, and he suddenly heard, I don't know, something. He's like, oh, I wanted to say hello to you. Who's she talking to?
Kindred spirits, obviously. He's hearing another person.
Can I just drop in here, Josh? But now you have nurtured the careers of so many successful actors and presenters. Mark, what do you think? Where do you think drive and ambition comes from? Do you think, like, thinking of Chris and Liam, for example, do you think it was the parenting? Is it parenting or self-driven? What do you think? Like,
look, everyone's got their own drive mechanism. Those boys had their own. Others are driven. Some people are driven by fame. Some people are driven by financial success. Some people are driven by the mere fact that they wish to do good work, and the money and the fame tends to follow it afterwards. Everyone's got their own motivations about what it is the reasons they get up each morning and they venture out and do this career.
So what now drives you? Because you now have a new company. You've gone on a bit of a new direction.
Yeah, well, I've added production to what I do now, which isn't really a big leap for me, because at the early stages of my career, I opened my own theatre in Sydney. I was running and operating a little 150-seater in Glebe called the Bay Street Theatre. And that's where I learned producing skills, because it was an old converted church, and I used to live upstairs. Used to live upstairs at this church, and there.
I thought you were going to say you wanted to be a priest. You know, like maybe that was one of the career paths that you could have gone down.
Well, you're right, because I did.
What? You did?
I did. When I was 12 or 13, I went to Catholic school and I looked at what the priests were doing and the nuns, and I thought what they were doing was trying to make people better and consoling them, and there was a greater good, and I changed my mind shortly.
That's why you're so lovely. I would never have wanted to be a nun. I wouldn't have wanted to get nun. You know, like I was educated by the nuns, so I was a good similar, upbringing. But no, I can't think I ever wanted to be a nun. No.
It's a whole bunch of
way too naughty.
But I'm not going to make any jokes there. But yeah, and so producing, I learned that my straps of being a producer when I was producing theatre. So I owned and ran the theatre. I didn't own it. I leased the theatre for almost 3 years, and we toured over 50 different new Australian projects around the country. We toured a couple overseas. And those were the days where myself and my partner, Adam Quinn, we had no money. We were doing everything we possibly could just to keep the doors open. So I'd be doing the box office and he'd do the bar, and then the show would start and I'd go in and do the ticketing at the front door, and he'd do the lights and the sound, and then we'd start it all over again. We were doing at one stage 3 different shows each night.
Wow.
So just to keep the doors open. So we do an 8 o'clock, a 9:30, and then an 11 o'clock show with all different sets. And we were sets in and out. So
that would have been amazing.
We designed our own posters. We created our own marketing. We spent our own money. We did. That's where we learned it all.
Wow. And what would you say your favourite play is?
Well, I think my favourite play has to be the very first play that I saw, because it had such an enormous impact upon me as a young man that I knew at that stage I wanted to somehow be involved in that. I didn't know what that was. And given I'd just seen Metamorphosis, and which is dung beetles, people becoming dung beetles and crawling all over the set and up the roof, I didn't understand it or appreciate it until much, much later, but that would have to have started me.
Wow. My first play I ever saw, I was really, really young, and I ended up being in it, was The Crucible. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've seen, as you can imagine now, I've seen so many versions of The Crucible. And
I love that. That just sticks in my mind, because that was the first play I saw.
Yeah. It's still very, very significant. And, Arthur Miller's work all those years later, when he was actually referring to McCarthyism in his play about people being pulled out and alienated, and the finger pointed at them falsely. It still remains such an amazing.
I just remember being on a slab in a nightie as the young possessed child. I didn't have to do much. I just laid there, and that was my first little taste of acting.
I'm sure you lying on the slab would have done that, unlike anybody that's ever laid on a slab before.
My sister was in the play and my mum was in the play. It was like community theatre in Adelaide, but that was my first real taste for like acting. Not that I've gone down all that acting path. I became more presenting and just being me, but I absolutely loved theatre, still do. Worked in Stolmos Theatres in London before I met you. I was at Phantom of the Opera. I was at Les Mis. Like, I'll never, ever forget it. It was the best time of my life. And I just worked on stage door or, you know, red coating, but it was still, I got to see all of that for free every day. Yeah. Amazing. All the musicals. Mark, so do you say anything? What's something you say to someone comes to see you and they want to get on your agency? Like, what is it that you say? Like, if somebody's listening who's driven by, they know what they want to be, you know, become an actor or a presenter, what is it they have to do? If you had to say, you know, your wisdom to them, if they're listening.
Well, prior to the young actors coming to me, we would have done our research. Mm-hmm. So I never want to put anybody in a position where they're needing to sell themselves to me. I would have seen their work either in show reels or on stage, and I would be inviting them in to my office, and we'd be sharing what we could both do for each other. What I look for, I've been asked this so many times, and I wish I had a better description of what I look for. I look for a combination of intelligence, of self-depreciating humor, of a drive that could be conceived as being competitive, and a well-read intelligence, or at least a very curious mind, means that the young actor is going to be looking and exploring and finding out new things about the industry and about themselves as a human being. Because, you know, you don't want to just think, I want to be a great actor. You know, you've got to balance that with being, I want to be a decent and educated human being. And that will in turn feed me to become a great actor. You can do wonderful classes with extraordinary teachers and work with amazing mentors. But the constant searching and thirst for what's around the corner, I don't know if you can train that or if you can harness that. It's just one of the many things that I look for when I talk to somebody.
Right. So in your phone, is there people like Chris Hemsworth, you can just ring up, say, hey Chris, it's Mark, and they just see your number calling, better answer it, it's Mark Morrisey. Imagine if you lost your phone and I got your phone.
If they've got any sense, they see my number and they hang up and they go off and do something far more interesting.
They do not. I would love to have a little look through your phone. And look, you're pretty cool. You've got two daughters, Mia and Piper. How old are they now?
Mia's 25 and Piper's 17.
Wow. And Mia, she's acting? Because I've seen Mia.
They're both really interesting in their career choices. Mia was acting at an early age and singing. When she was doing her HSC, she got a television series.
Wow.
For the ABC. So she shot
having a dad, Mark Morrisey, might help a little bit.
Well, yes and no. It's sometimes a little bit of a hindrance, to be honest, because I think both of them, and Piper also went on to have a career, but then she decided to retire at the age of 15 because she didn't like it. I think having a me around, people start to question, well, did you get this on your own merits, or did you get it?
Or did Mark pick up the phone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in none of their cases I ever did that, because I actually didn't encourage this path that taken. It's such a difficult.
Was Mia on Home and Away?
Most recently, she was on Home and Away. So was Piper.
Piper as well. Oh wow! My mum would know. She's the biggest Home and Away fan. Mum would know everything. She'd be like, "Oh yes, I know." What was Mia's character? Because I'll ask Mum, and she'll just know straight away.
Oh God, I should know that. Shouldn't I? I don't think I know. I can remember the character.
What about Piper? Piper was Kate Ritchie's
daughter.
Yeah,
for about a 3-month period. And Piper then went on to get a mini-series, and she's still the youngest nominated young actor to be nominated for an actor award.
Wow! And yet she doesn't want to do it.
No,
not interested.
Decided it wasn't for her, so she's going to find her own path outside of.
Well, I knew when I saw Mia, I knew it was your daughter. She's so beautiful. I was thinking that's got to be Mark's daughter, because I could see the mix of you and your wife. Well, no, Lizzie and you, like your wife, and you. She looks, but I'm not a home and away watcher. But I saw her on a commercial. I thought that's got to be Mia.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well picked.
Yeah.
No, she loved it because the character was such a, she was mean. She was mean.
That's right. Yeah.
And did all sorts of terrible things. And
she had a good character.
She was very juicy. She had a ball.
She had a juicy. Now, what is that on your arm? That texture on your right arm when you're
this.
You've smudged something on the desk.
No,
it doesn't come off. What is this? You've got a tattoo. Where did you get that?
There's an awesome story attached to this. My father was a very, very secretive man.
Ooh.
And so therefore I really didn't know much of it. I didn't know anybody from his family. I didn't know really who my grandfather and grandmother were. And on the day of his funeral, this woman approached me and introduced herself, and she was a distant relative, and she'd actually written a book on the Morriseys, on the Morrissey clan, going back to the 1700s. So
where does the Morrissey clan come from?
Oh, from Ireland.
Okay.
So there, on that day, I looked at Mia and I said, we're going to buy a ticket. We're going to fly to Ireland next week, which we did. And we used this book like a roadmap to trace our way back to where the Morriseys came from, which is in Limerick. And she decided, she did some research and discovered the choice of the sea, which is...
That's what it says, the choice of the sea.
Choice of the sea is Gaelic for Morrissey.
Wow.
So I got it there and she got it done as well.
Oh, and, so you got father-daughter tattoos.
We do.
Oh, that's a lovely story.
Yeah, so
not that I like tattoos, mind you, but
This is
it kind of looks cool on you. You're sort of a bit of a rock star.
Yeah,
it makes you look a bit more rock and roll, like like a famous talent manager. Now you're tattooed.
Yeah. Come on, throw some more questions out there. Don't talk about me.
Well, what else can we talk about? What's happening now? What's coming up? What's the next film you're going to be producing? Or can you talk about it? Or is it secret? Or
well, look, it is a little confidential, but I'm willing to talk. I want to talk about it because it's such an extraordinary topic. About 3 years ago, I came across this book, and the book was entitled "Burning Bridges."
Wow!
And it was a story on a man who arrived on the San Francisco docks in the 1920s, and he saw the way the union or the way the workers were being treated, which was beyond appalling. There were lines of men, 400 or 500 long, and there'd be 3 or 4 jobs. And those jobs were dictated by the heads who would choose and pick who would get a job for that day, and then the men would return home without any work. And so he decided to make a change, and he rose through the ranks of the Longshoremen's Union, and he called what turned out to be one of the biggest union strikes in American history in the San Francisco docklands, and he closed all of San Francisco. And 2 men were shot dead. A number of the protesters were shot in the back by the police. But what happened after that was it instigated a domino effect right around the USA, and unions went out with sympathy, and he gained all of the demands that he had made for the unions, which then set them on a path of other unions following in turn. And he became an extraordinary legend in the world of unionism in America for the next 40 years. And Harry Bridges, there's parks in New York, there's monuments for him. The day that he died, which I think was in the 1980s, there was a national day of strike and sympathy for him. And he was born in Melbourne, Australia.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So that's your little secret.
That's what movie. I'm doing. So I'm producing an Audible book, a 10-part, 35-minute drama series based on that. And at the same time, I won't say who I have, but I've gone into partnership with one of America's most significant writer and producers, who is currently writing the first of 10 episodes that we're going to pitch together to America.
How exciting!
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing story.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you.
I'm going to get. Yeah, thinking of audio books, Josh. Later you can chat to Mark. No, for your brother. Mark, how is COVID-19 affecting your industry?
Oh,
all your actors and all your presenters.
It's decimated the industry, Paula. It's sadly, the incentives that were released Australia-wide, a lot of my clients and a lot of the industry aren't able to apply for.
No, they're not.
Correct categories. I feel that maybe theatre is going to take a lot longer than any of us suspect to get back on its feet.
Really tough.
Musical theatre is difficult. Film and television, I think television may find its way back the earliest out of all of these. I don't want to say a date, but soon television will be back. Film's going to be more of a challenge. Certainly international film's going to be more of a challenge.
Yeah, I noticed everything's like all release dates have been pushed back, and all the big movies, and you sort of think...
With big movies, you just don't know whether the actors that had a window of opportunity to shoot that film are now going to be alive. Yeah. So I would proudly say I've got one of the best group of people that I work with. They're not staff, they're my associates. And a lot of them I've worked with for now like 15 years. And they've been onto each and every client. They're speaking to them on a regular basis. We're sending out regular messages to all of them. They know that when this is all over, we were there for them before this started and during, and we'll be here again when it's over.
Is there still castings happening or not, Mark?
No.
None at all. Nothing. It's just not even like, self-testing. Nothing.
No.
Oh, it's so sad. So sad.
Yeah. And it's difficult for creatives, Paul, because that's what they do.
It is.
They want to give. They want to share with people, and now they're twiddling their thumbs, either eating everything in their fridge, or doing 3 hours of exercise a day.
Yeah. I guess if you can look at a positive in this situation, someone like you now can be concentrating on your new venture and other people I know have been writing books and all these things they've been wanting to do for years and years and years, and they've gone, you know what, now's the time I can sit and concentrate and get my book finished. Or I mean, maybe that, you know, in a positive, actors can be training more. No, I don't know. It's sad though, because monetary wise they would be getting nothing.
Yeah, it's very difficult. The audible drama is like the perfect scenario for this sort of crisis, where you've got writers that are home and they can write, they can continue. Producers can develop with them remotely.
Yes, yeah.
That model makes a lot of sense, but there's not many other opportunities at this stage. But it will pass. It will pass.
Before you have to get back to, you know, your audio, your writing and your creative, I can see all your creative space behind you, Mark. Look at that. You've always had an awesome space to work in. I know your big warehouse. Is there anything you wake up, or is there a life motto that you live by?
I think, Paula, I've got a really curious spirit. And that may come from the fact that maybe I've got no sense of concentration span, you know, concentrate on something for a short time. So I try everything. It could be a bit of both. But I love new. I just turned 62 last week, but I'm still curious. I want to know what's around the corner. I was lucky enough, I've just joined a sketching online course because I want to learn how to draw. And just that simple action has enabled me to look around, and now I don't see the warehouse as it is. I see shades and colours, shadows.
Oh, wow.
You know, just if one can keep opening one's mind, just staying open to the possibilities. I think in this society right now, it's very easy to be black or white. Either you're with us or you're against us. I feel the nature of human spirit is one that's nuanced, that sometimes we need to consider that space that's right in between and see it from both sides. I think when you do tend to take a side with anything, you close off the option of new information to be given you. So again, it goes back to what I was saying, try as many things as you possibly can.
That is really good advice.
Well, one of the podcasts that I've listened to, I've caught on recently, is Making Sense by Sam Harris. And he's a philosopher in America. And Sam touches upon a whole range of subjects, and quite often I'll be so overwhelmed by the level of discussion they're having. I have to pause, replay, and listen to it again.
I'll have to have a listen to that.
Yeah. It's quite extraordinary. And also the poems of David White, this Irish poet I've been listening to over the last 3-4 weeks. And
is it said in the Irish accent?
He reads
I have to be sure.
And his accent, his voice, Paula, is just awesome. He does this fascinating thing when he's reading his poem. So he reads the poem, then he describes the instance of how he wrote that, what was taking place in his life, and then he reads it again. But he's got this wonderful little thing with his voice that if he says a sentence and he's actually subliminally, he's happy with what he's just said.
Yeah.
He said, yeah. So he'd be talking to you and you go, well, Paula, you know, I think this has gone so really well, and I'm thrilled to have done this here. And we must do that again, don't you think? Yeah. And he just adds this little at the end of it. And each time he does it, I go, oh, he's just given himself a tick. He's really happy with that sentence.
And if you could sum up a part of your life or your life in a song, what song best describe Mr. Mark Morrisey? That's a hard one, isn't it?
There's there's a scene
Mm-hmm.
in Richard Curtis movie which is called About Time.
About time.
And there's a scene. Don't you know there's a pandemic? There's somebody calling me.
It could be Chris. Can you answer it?
Yeah, I'll get back to you. No, there's a scene in it where the father is dying, and they say, well, what would you do, Dad? What was the one thing you'd like to do? And they go down to the seaside and they hold hands, and it's his son, who's about 10, and him, just no words, just spending time that day. And I think when he dies, the father, there's a Nick Cave song.
Nick Cave.
There's a Nick Cave, Into My Arms. They play the song Into My Arms at the funeral, and it breaks me up every time I hear that song.
I know the exact song.
It takes me all the way back to that moment. So we didn't have music in our house, so I missed that.
You didn't?
But music tends to play an important part for me because it's part of the filmic experience. So I tend to now know songs because of the movie scenes that they.
I love asking that question because music is just, for me, nearly every significant moment I can remember a song in my life. I've even written down in my diary my funeral list.
Have you?
Every song. Even to the one where everyone has to be dancing out of. Everyone has to be up and dancing on the way out.
I think I've written down one song that I liked, a Carole King song.
Oh, I love Carole King.
But it's not one of the up ones. Now and Forever, it's called.
Oh, that's a nice song.
Now and Forever. You'll always be a part of me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Now, before you go, can I quickly ask you one thing a bit lightheartedly? Now, what is it about actors that they tend to, when they become really big and famous, that they tend to have to keep their sexuality secret? If they're... Do they?
I don't think
Can I have the insight to you? Are there any like big Hollywood actors that we think are straight that actually aren't?
Well, there probably are, Paula, but I have the worst gaydar anybody could possibly have.
Mark, I thought you'd be able to.
No.
Everyone knows me. I talk about it all the time. Okay.
No, it just never occurs to me. I don't even think about that for whatever reason. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't understand it, and it doesn't occur to me.
But does it matter? You know, like there's always rumours going around.
No. It doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
If anything now, especially the wonderful changes that are taking place in our industry when it comes to certain projects being funded, you know, being a person. I was trying to work out the plural of person. I can't work it out. So listeners, please accept my apologies because I don't know how to say them. But there's magnificent, interesting, fascinating projects now about fluid sexuality being financed, and young, wonderful actors exploring this. And again, that's another wonderful area to remain open and understand more.
You have got the worst gaydar. I thought you were going to be able to give us some inside scoop on like.
No, I'm hopeless. I absolutely.
Because back in my day, I had to pretend to be a girlfriend of gay guys.
You were about to say a name, and you stopped.
Okay, Toby from Human Nature. I used to pretend that we were
Which one's
Sony
Toby?
Music, the gay one. Who's got a husband and kids. He's like the baritone voice in Human Nature.
Right.
We used to go to things together, and because they didn't want, maybe he had a girlfriend. It
honestly matters so little now, does it?
It does now, but I've heard that there's, names like, the names get thrown around like Tom Cruise is not straight, and, everyone talks about it, but, there's rumours.
I don't know.
Look at Mark. He doesn't know. He's like,
I really don't. But what I can tell you about Tom Cruise is Courtney. obviously worked very closely with him in a feature film. And the man has, without doubt, probably the finest work ethic on the planet.
Wow.
He lives, breathes, does everything for the films that he's in. I'd love to meet with him and
Would you?
have oh God, yeah, and have a
Yeah.
5-minute conversation with him, because I think his knowledge of the film industry would be encyclopedic.
But you'd be no good to tell me if he's gay or not, because you haven't got a good gaydar.
No, I'd be talking about his next film.
You would. And I'd be asking, are you or not?
No, you are.
Oh, Mark. Okay, so who can you get on my podcast for me? I'm going to hold you to this. Who do you think? Who in the Mark Morrisey stable?
Who else? What sort of
Someone
subject
who
matter
subject matter has to be someone who absolutely has shown pure grit to get to where they have got. They just have shown strength of character, perseverance.
Pure grit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably go through my list of female
yes.
actors I represent, because I think females have a harder path to follow than males. There's not as many roles written for them.
No.
They have had to put up with more nonsense than is imaginable. And
like horrible bands with masks on.
The what?
Horrible bands with masks on who take down their fly and show and throw their room key at them while they're working and they're 25 years of age.
I'm not entirely sure
we've gone. No, that was me. That was me. Like I was.
Are you serious?
That was me when I was at Channel V. And you and you
say that again.
You stood up for me. You stood up for me, Mark. So you just had my back. Like I will,
Well, that's not acceptable under any.
It isn't acceptable, but it was fine because they were just wasted and they're trying to be cool and like bands do. But I was in the workplace. I was at work. But you stood up for me, Mark, and and I totally now, at my age now, going on 48, I totally understand why you did, because I would have just, continued on, and it's, think about it now. I'll continue on because I loved my job so much. I just loved it. And it didn't really, I was pretty tough, but you were saying, I'm sorry, that is so wrong. You're at work. And it was in the green room and I was just about to go live, but they were just trying to get attention. That's all they were trying to do. They were just trying to get attention.
I think it's also about status, and it's about ensuring that sometimes the female co-host or the female was somehow, they thought in some perverted way, put in their own place, which has no place in any sort of series.
They were just little American preppies hiding behind masks, I think back. I thank you. I thank you because I did. I grabbed him by the throat and I pushed him up against the wall and I said, "You've got to grow one before you can give one," and that's exactly what I did. And but it was everybody else in the room that was very. It was a very awful, Osher was shaking. Everyone there. It wasn't nice. It's not a nice thing when people are being violent and sort of like acting all, But back, you were amazing. You stood up for me, and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you. That's kind. There's a great project, feature film called Bombshell, that's out at the moment with the wonderful to Margot Robbie and Nicole Kidman.
I haven't seen that yet, Mark.
And for the moment, I've just quickly forgotten actually the lead actor's name. Oh, it's dreadful. I've forgotten her name. She's actually a producer on the project as well. They were just extraordinary. But there were moments during this film when, I couldn't actually watch it, or I shifted uncomfortably by some of the things that were said and done.
I haven't seen it. I must watch that movie.
wonderful South African actor, and it's
Charlize Theron.
Charlize Theron, thank you.
I love her.
She walks on in the first scene, and I look and I go, I cannot see Charlize Theron anywhere in this character. This is just extraordinary.
Really?
But they're all. It's a wonderful film. It's a horrendous subject matter. Wonderful film.
Oh, I must see it. I must see that. Now that you say it's a wonderful film, I will watch that.
Well, there's a lot of wonderful medium available at the moment. You know, Ricky Gervais' Afterlife, I think, is in the second season. On Netflix, there is Unorthodox, which is totally the most...
I watched that, Mark. I love that. I loved it.
It's just... I didn't have words for it, watching it, knowing that subculture or society lives within one of the biggest cities on the planet, and they have carved out this existence and this amazing. And that's what I mean. I mean, that's a really good example of what I was saying before. I had no idea of the lifestyle of a male and female Orthodox Jew.
Either did I. And I lived in Wallara, and I used to, I was fascinated watching the Orthodox Jews walk around Bellevue Hill, for example. I have no idea. I didn't even really, hello, I lived in Sydney around, and now I know. It's like, it was quite confronting for me, really confronting.
Yeah. And that extraordinary young actor that played the lead.
She's amazing.
Truly astounding. So there's a lot of great entertainment, and when this is over, there's going to be a lot more great entertainment.
I can't wait. Thank you, Mark Morrisey. Thank you for coming on my podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, I know you are Australia's best, and anyone who's listening, if you ever get with Morrisey Management, you've made it. You've made it if you get on his books. You have. Thank you very much, Mark. And good luck with all your ventures. I can't wait to see what happens.
Thank you. And you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. What a nice guy is Mark Morrisey. Hi. Thanks for tuning in. I'm loving this YouTube. Now, if you are liking what you see, please subscribe, like, share, send me a comment. I'd love to read your comments. Tell me where you're watching in the world, perhaps. I'd love that. Or hit me up on my socials or puregrit.com.au. But if you subscribe, you won't miss